Hey guys, it's Miss Frizzle and welcome back to my channel. We're going to be using the power of a gradient and the power of really simple motifs to be able to create really interesting landscapes that are super easy and don't require really any prior artistic knowledge. This is all that you need to gather at the store. Some kind of painting surface, some kind of paintbrush, and any paint colors you want, plus a tube of white. That's all we need in order to make this happen.
Let's start the painting process by mixing out our palette. We're going to start with the favorite color of whoever you're making this painting for and some white. Bonus points if you tint that white with just a little bit of whatever color you'd like. Now we're going to mix both of these colors together to try and create the perfect in-between. You don't have to get too fussy with this, just use your best judgment. Now you scoop a little bit of that color off to the sides into two different piles. Mix one of the piles with your white color and the other with whatever that first darkest color is. This is a quick and easy way to get a really nice gradient. And you can keep it wet on your palette by spritzing it with a little bit of water. Now let's go ahead and pick out our focal point for our painting. Choose whichever of these options you think the person you're gifting this painting to reminds you the most of. Now sketch out the shape that you chose at the top of your composition and sketch a horizon line a little bit lower than halfway down your composition. With our sketch applied to our painting surface, we can start going in with our paint. No matter what colors you chose to use for this, you should have 5 mixed out just like I have demonstrated on the left. You can use that key to be able to figure out which of the colors on your palette you should be using for each step in this composition. For the first layer, we're just going to be filling in the sky and below the horizon line, as well as inside of that little star, or in your case, maybe a sun or a moon. The first layer is really all about just covering up that white background. We don't want too much of that peeking through. Once all of that is dry, I'm gonna go in with a mixture of my 2 lightest colors to outline the shape of my focal point. Then, taking my second to darkest color, I paint in the second layer of my foreground, making sure to leave a little strip of the last color showing up top. Then I do the same thing with my darkest color, except this time I leave a larger space of that second to darkest color showing. If you're using lower quality acrylics like I am, I highly recommend going back over everything a second time before moving on to any more steps. This is really gonna help prevent any patchiness and will make your painting look much better overall, because I want you guys to be feeling really good about this when this is done. Now that we're done establishing the composition, it's time to choose one of these motifs. And if you really want a challenge, you can choose more than one. Starting off with our mountains furthest in the background, these are the easiest motif to do. All you have to do is create slightly varying angles and edges to give the appearance of distant mountains. If you do all 3 layers mountains, make sure that they get sharper, taller, and a little bit more jagged the closer they are to the foreground. Next, we have trees. In this case, I'm going to be using a pine tree motif, which is super easy to paint. Basically, you're just painting an upside down V that has a little bit more of a curve on each side. Stack these upside down V's on top of each other, making them gradually larger the closer they get to the bottom of the tree. For added visual interest, I recommend making each tree a slightly different size. That way it won't be too monotonous. Lastly, we have our wave motif. I start by painting a bunch of very wide U-shape marks, connecting them all together. You can then go back into the peak of each wave and hook it off to one direction. If you end up choosing more than one motif like I did here, make sure to structure them so that the mountains are always behind the trees and the trees are always behind the waves. You can mix and match your motifs so that you have 2 layers that are the same and one that's different if you'd like, or you can have them all 3 be the same like I've done in these 3 examples. Just make sure that each layer of your motif gets slightly larger as it gets closer to the foreground. I hope you have fun making all kinds of different combinations of beautiful paintings. And if you have any leftover paint, I highly recommend that you scrape it off of your palette and onto another canvas. If you have enough paint, you can make a whole separate little abstract piece with just your leftovers. Or you can be crazy like me and slap it all onto a giant canvas that I only have for leftover paint.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that your paintings come out beautifully. And just a side note, thank you guys so much for 100,000 subscribers. I really appreciate all the support. I am so excited to make more long form videos. I already have more in production and I am just super grateful for all of you. Happy painting!